It's almost Easter, so let's make some decor. Hi everyone and welcome back to my craft room. My name is Kelsey. I also call myself Dinosaur Mama, and today we're gonna work together to create this DIY Easter wreath. I'm going to link everything you need down in the description below, but let's get started. Let's jump into the Cricut Design Space portion of the tutorial. This is pretty quick. Once you have all of your SVGs uploaded into Cricut Design Space, we need to start modifying them. So for the wreath, you're going to delete the holly berries and the leaves, and you can change the color if you want. I cut mine out of wood on my laser, but you can also do multiple layers of paper to make it thicker, just so it has a little bit of stiffness to it rather than just one single sheet of paper. And you're going to want to resize that to max out the paper that you have. So for 12 by 12 paper for your frame, you can do 11.5 as the max. So make sure that for your height, the max is 11.5 or your width is maxed at 11.5. I didn't see it at first and I accidentally made the height like 11.7. So I ended up fixing that at the end. Then what I did was I just ungrouped my Easter eggs and then I grabbed them and resized them to 3 inches. You can resize this to whatever size you're making your wreath. I don't want to give you specific sizes because you can make this as big or as small as you want and as your machines allow. And if you got your frame at, let's say, the Dollar Tree or the craft store, of course you're going to put in a faux size in there and then delete the backing at the end. So I'm just putting in my bunny, I'm resizing everything as I go along and just kind of pretending that this is what it would look like if it were actual size. So now I'm going to go ahead and duplicate my leaves. I did make my leaves kind of bigger in terms of my wreath, like they definitely are very big. And this is up to you. It's also up to you how many you want to cut. I did a lot because I wanted these to be my filler. This is what I used at the very end of my wreath to fill in any spots that had holes. So you can cut extra and end up not using them all. It really just depends. I ended up making like 16 of them. Now, as for my rolled roses, I sized these at a max height of 5.5, and the only reason I did this was so that I could fit 4 of these rolled roses on one 12 by 12 piece of paper, and these roses ended up being in between 1 to probably about 2 inches, depending on how tight you roll them, and they are relatively small, so if you want to make more, I only made 8 to fill up my wreath, but I honestly had like enough space for that. Like I thought it looked good with just the 8, but you can always make more or less, but they do end up being around 1.5-ish inches depending on how you roll them. And if you are cutting out your wreath from paper, please remember to duplicate those. And again, my size here is wrong. It should be a max height of 11.5. So I did end up fixing that at the end. The last thing that I suggest doing is going over to your color sync option over next to layers. And if you want to, you can leave it the way it is, but you can change around some of the colors. Like I ended up making 2 blue eggs and 2 purple eggs so that I had to cut less paper. That was just so I had less mats, because if you just send this right over, you'll notice that you have 24 mats. And this is when I noticed that my sizing of my wreath was wrong. But you'll have 24 mats and some of the blues are really similar. So just go over to Color Sync and kind of match those up before you cut. And once you're ready to cut, I cut everything out in medium cardstock, and I like to do it in fast mode just so it goes faster. I used my xTool to cut out my frame. It's the same SVG for the holly. I just used a piece of basswood. And if you have a Cricut maker, you can do this. It's just going to take a long time. So let's start with our rolled roses. I'm going to use my quilling tool. You can also use tweezers or literally just your fingers, but you're going to start at the end. It doesn't matter. I don't know why I flipped it, but you're just going to start rolling, and you want to try to keep the bottom where it's straight on that curve, not where the petals are, as even as possible. And you can find this SVG for free on my website, and I will link all of that below and where to find it, along with the blog post on how to do all this as well. So all of these SVGs are free for you to use. So I'm just rolling along on my quilling tool, and you can always fix the evenness at the bottom after you're done rolling, but I'm just rolling it along all the way using the quilling tool. So it's relatively tight, and don't worry about how tight it is because I end up loosening these quite a bit actually, but I just want to give it that nice curl at the beginning. And again, you can use tweezers for this, just sticking them in the middle, like even the Cricut tweezers, and I'm just spinning it around, and you can see it's not super even just yet, but I'm going to make it even with my nails and with my fingers, and I just do that by pushing down on the top. And so I pulled out my quilling tool, and see, it's like super duper tight inside. We don't want it that tight, but we do want it even. And then we are going to add some glue in there and let it loosen up a little bit, and then that like center circle on the bottom, that's what we're going to glue it to. We'll end up folding the petals out a little bit after we glue it down. So I'm just letting it unroll just a little bit. You don't want it to be too crazy. And you really want it to kind of unroll from the center, not just from the edges, which I know is a little hard to do. And I definitely loosened up as I went along. My other suggestion is that you just practice these and be patient. And I'm not perfect at them, and I don't, try to claim that I am. And I learn each time that I do it. And like I said, you just want to let it like unroll. I'm sticking in the quilling tool to kind of like let it unroll from the center a little bit. So don't be, too tight about it. Don't be too loose about it. Again, these take practice, so just take your time. You'll get it eventually. Hopefully one day I'll perfect it. That would be awesome. But then we're going to just glue it down and fold down the petals. And this is the first time that I've actually used the Bearly Arts glue for the petals over the hot glue gun. I usually use my hot glue gun just because it sticks quicker. The Bearly Arts glue does dry really fast, so it's not like that's the problem. Just have to hold it a little bit longer. But I will link all of the materials that I use, like the glue, below as well. And I just hold my finger on it, and then I let it dry, and that's when we start peeling out our petals. And as you can see here, I am just peeling down my petals a little bit with my fingers, and you can go around the flower and just kind of bend them out to give the rose a little bit of shape. And here is my final rolled rose. These petals are a little more realistic than some of the other rolled roses that I've seen. And then you'll just repeat the process with all of the rolled roses that you cut out. For my leaves, I literally just put a little bend in the center. Nothing fancy. I bent it. Like, I don't know how else to say it. You could use a scoring tool to do this. You can add more lines in. You can use alcohol ink. You can color it, whatever you want to do. You could do different size leaves. But I literally just am bending them. I have them kind of layered now, and I'm just bending a group of them all at once so that they look a little bit like leaves. Obviously, they're pastel, and I've never seen pastel leaves in real life. Maybe, actually, there's pastel leaves in front of me right now, so that was a lie. But they just bend them and give them a little bit of shape, and that's all you have to do for the leaves. I feel like the bunny is pretty self-explanatory, but we are just gluing his tail on with a little bit of craft glue. And then for my eggs, I laid out all of the pieces, and I used 2 machines, and I guess I wasn't paying attention, and I did lose some of my cutouts, which sucks, but we must move on and keep going. And so for your layers for your eggs, you're just going to kind of group them all together, lay them out all in front of you so you have the layers correct, and then just use your craft glue to go down and lay down each layer. I use textured paper for this, so just if you do the same, make sure your textured side, if it does have one texture side, is the right side up. That's my only thing that you need to make sure you're looking for. And you can always use foam tape for this as well if you want to add a little more height. I just went with glue. I thought it looked the best. Or you can even buy those little foam eggs and decorate those instead of using paper eggs. But I do have these SVGs up for free for you to download as well. And on my last egg, the last pink one over on the left, this is where I was missing I was missing parts on the other pink one too, but I was missing some of these. So I added on these rhinestones. They're self-adhesive. I got them at Walmart, but I will link some below that are on Amazon as well. And adhere on, and I only put 3. I thought it added like a little bit of more dimension to the eggs. So totally optional, up to you. You can decorate these however you want, just like they're your real Easter eggs. My suggestion is to definitely place all of your stuff out onto your wreath before you start gluing down anything with hot glue. So make sure your hot glue is heating up if you haven't been using it, and start organizing where you want to put all of your pieces. And if you used paper to do your backing, your frame of your wreath, make sure you layer those and that they're dry before you start putting on all of the pieces. You can also use like foam if you want to add a little more thickness to your frame. But then I also suggest using hot glue for gluing on all of the pieces. It just sticks a little bit like tighter. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. It's up to you. I prefer hot glue for when I'm doing things on my wood, or I use Gorilla Glue on my wood pieces, but I also heard Beacon is really good. But I'm just placing all of my pieces down and then hot gluing them on, and I'll do the same for the roses. And then the leaves I do at the very end because, like I mentioned before, those are a filler. So if you don't use all of them, it's okay, but I like to stick them in places that need a little bit more, and it just is showing too much of that frame in the back. So just go around, and if you're using paper, you'll need to be a little more careful about where you place your hot glue. With the wood, I have a little bit of time to kind of like peel off the hot glue if it isn't where I want to put it. But I did unstick all those leaves in and then go through and hot glue them under. So just take your time in doing this, and don't hot glue a ton when you're doing the leaves and the roses. Like, give yourself some leeway with space underneath. And there's our final wreath, and now we're going to attach our string on the back. Adding on your string is optional, so if you want to add this, you can to hang, or you can just use a command hook through one of the many holes on the wreath. But I'm just adding 2 little dots of hot glue and then some string onto the back. You can make it as long or as short as you want it to. Just be careful that you don't burn yourself when adding on your string, and give it ample time to dry. Thank you so much for joining me as we created this DIY Easter wreath together. If you enjoyed this project and you're looking for more Cricut craft projects and SVG tutorials, please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you get alerted when there's a new video out. Stay crafty!